Hey, what's going on? This is Scott at Scott Doty TV, and this is the place to be if you're a parent who wants to get equipped to be an asset to your child's or children's educational process. Now today I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a test called the Army Alpha, which in about 1915 was designed by the United States government to figure out where certain soldiers could best be used in World War I. 10 years later, it was adapted. It became, in 1926, the Scholastic Aptitude Test. This is our Scholastic Aptitude Test, way back in the day. For 30 years or so, the Scholastic Aptitude Test dominated the scene of testing for colleges. Then, in 1959, came along a newcomer, the ACT, and the two started duking it out. For many decades, SAT, this is a coastal girl, all right? California, East Coast, Northeast, it was all about the SAT. Midwest, all about the ACT. Until recently, some colleges around the country said, you know what? We don't actually have preferences anymore. Send whichever test you want. That was a pretty big deal. What happened as a result is kids started getting the option of choosing which test they were better on and which one they therefore wanted to take and send to colleges. And so they really started examining both options, in which case they found, the ACT seems a little more straightforward. The SAT, all this weird vocabulary, all these strange, mind-bending math problems, plus that -1/4 for every wrong answer, and introduced all these weird strategies around blanks. I don't want to deal with all that. Let's just do the ACT. The idea is that suddenly the ACT is the most popular test around the world, which has CollegeBoard, which makes the SAT very nervous. As a result, SAT CollegeBoard has brought in a new CEO named David Coleman, and David has been used to revamp the test entirely. The SAT, the new revamped SAT, comes out in March of 2016. I want to give you, mom and dad, a quick sense of how the new SAT compares to the ACT so you can get a sense of which one might be better for your child. Now here's the situation. The new SAT looks kind of like this. In case you didn't notice, I'm saying it looks like the ACT. The SAT has stolen, straight up, pilfered, bam, taken all the ACT's good stuff and just appropriated it and put it into its own test and acted like it was all cool. It's not, SAT, I see you. You stole the ACT stuff. Here's your brief overview. The concept is the two tests are basically the same now. There are very minor differences. Now the SAT and ACT both have 4 multiple choice sections followed by an optional essay. Okay, that's how it has been for the ACT. That is what it is like now on the SAT. There's no penalty for wrong answers anymore on either test. Total test times, 3 hours 50 minutes, 3 hours 25 minutes. No vocabulary on either test. Woo! Calculator is always allowed on the ACT, and it's always multiple choice. On this new SAT, calculator is mostly allowed, but there is a math section that is no calculator allowed. But there are some grid-in answers where students have to make their own responses happen. That gives a lot of people agita. Both tests have now similar maths all the way up through Algebra 2 trigonometry, early pre-calc, and historically the SAT has been super scored, in which case you take better scores, some sub-scores from different dates, put them all together for your best overall score. It remains to be seen if colleges will be super scoring the new version of the SAT. That's actually not clear yet. On the ACT, schools are already split. Some do, some don't. In fact, I would say most don't. So, here's the situation. How do you know which one's better for your son? Here are a couple considerations in terms of pros and cons for each test. The 2 cons for the SAT. Number 1, the test starts with a 65-minute reading section. That's 65 minutes at 8 a.m. I wouldn't want to do it. But basically the idea is big passage, questions. Big passage, question. It's a hard way to start the day. I think that's an X against the SAT. Second, as I said before, the math has grid-in questions, which are tough for a lot of people, and an entire section that is calculator-free. So that's our second X against the SAT. If we move to the ACT, the 2 big X's against the ACT are, 1, it has that infamous science section at the end. But don't worry, please. It's not really science, okay? It's graphs and charts and it's data. It's reading passages and getting answers based on the passages. It's really no big deal. And in fact, the new SAT has those same kinds of questions scattered throughout its test. The only difference is on the ACT, it's all clustered into one big section. So I'll still say that that's a con of the ACT. The second con of the ACT is its pace. The ACT, as you see, is 25 minutes shorter overall than is the SAT, and yet the ACT has more than 50 questions more than the SAT has. So what this means is this test is a lot faster. If your student cannot get a bit of a blaze going, go really quickly, burning through questions, then this might be a challenging test for him or her. That doesn't mean that the questions are equal. I think the questions on this ACT test are actually slightly easier. So that's the payoff. So those are your two big considerations. Now, overall, here's the situation. Do not use PSAT or the Aspire, right? The little kind of minor league warm-up tests for these two. Don't use those as a barometer. It, honestly, it's not valid. The main reason being that neither one of those has an essay on it, and kids don't necessarily try that hard on them. You know, they're not a great indicator. Plus, part of what makes these tests harder is the length. And the Aspire and the PSAT are both basically half of this length. There are a lot of factors that we need to consider that you don't see in those pre-tests. What you really want to do is do a full-length simulated version of the new SAT and of the ACT as soon as possible. So that's my story of the day about this wonderful sibling rivalry between the SAT and the ACT, who have duked it out for decades and have basically come out as one schizophrenic child fighting with itself. I hope you figure out which one's better for your family by really exploring them, and you can please leave comments below if you have any further questions about these two tests. I'll be happy to comment or give you some feedback. In the meantime, thanks again for tuning in to SDTV. I hope that you feel more equipped to be an asset to your children's education so that they can storm the test. I'll see you next time.